questions, Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I was very surprised yesterday that we didn't witness the former Justice Minister rise and apologize to the House for stating here in the House that he was getting phone calls from judges in support of Bill 21. Remember, last May, last question period before a 5-week break, in the morning, the Justice Minister, the member from Fredericton North, rose in the House and he stated very, very clearly, I am getting calls from judges in support of Bill 21. You remember that? Then in the afternoon, he calls the media and says, no, that's not what I meant to say. I was just having conversations or talks, things like that. Perhaps right now, in question period today, I'll give the former Justice Minister, the member from Fredericton North, the opportunity to stand up, apologize, and clear this misstatement that was made in the House.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I think the questioning of the Leader of the Opposition makes it very clear that we must ask this question. Why did they make such a fuss that we had to come back to the legislature? They're asking questions that have already been answered several times. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we had several members of the government caucus that have been MLAs for quite some time, and they have never seen anything like they saw yesterday. We had the Leader of the Opposition and his team ask for standing votes on first reading, which has never been done. But more so, they're actually asking for standing votes on bills that they introduced that we said yes to proceed. So they are actually filibustering their own bills. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Leader of the Opposition to explain to the people of New Brunswick why he is clearly only here in the legislature to waste time.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that the new rules that the Premier put in place in this legislature don't work for democracy. They were here 4 days in May, put 7 bills on the floor of this legislature, and every MLA here has a right to get up and speak on behalf of their constituents, to debate the bills, improve them, or offer suggestions on how to make amendments. And that takes about 14 hours, Mr. Speaker, and there's only about 19 hours of debate if the members opposite don't get up. So when it comes to allowing bills to go forward, Mr. Speaker, the Premier is the one that doesn't want the debate to continue. He is the one that put 7 bills on the floor of this legislature and then adjourned the House on Friday. He did that to protect the Minister of Finance, or the Minister of Justice, the former Minister of Justice, because he'd made a huge indiscretion when it came to talking to judges. I'll give the former Minister a chance to stand up, apologize now, clear this issue.
The Honourable Premier.
Encore une fois, Monsieur le Président, la question donc demande le chef de l'opposition a déjà été demandée et a déjà été répondue à maintes reprises. Mais Monsieur le Président, je veux corriger le chef de l'opposition. En effet, s'il y aurait lu les médias cette semaine, il aurait vu qu'on a eu, lors de cette session comparée à celui-là en 2013-2014, nous avons eu plus de temps à débattre chaque projet de loi. Nous avons eu plus de temps en comité pour discuter, demander des questions et bien sûr les répondre concernant chaque projet de loi. Monsieur le Président, nous avons, avec des changements, fait en sorte qu'il y a plus d'imputabilité et de plus, il y a même plus de temps en comité où nous pouvons vraiment avoir l'opposition qui demande leurs questions pointues auprès du gouvernement concernant les projets de loi. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the member opposite, the Leader of the Opposition again, if he's complaining that there wasn't enough time in the legislature, why did he waste all afternoon yesterday, Mr. Speaker?
The Leader of the Official Opposition, I remind the people in the gallery they're not allowed to participate in debate.
So, Mr. Speaker, I guess the Premier thinks that protecting children in the school zone is a waste of time. I guess the Premier thinks that adding accountability to financial records and pre-election statements is a waste of time. I guess the Premier thinks that adding a lobby register to understand who's lobbying the government and who's paying for that lobby is a waste of time. Mr. Speaker, I go back to the fact that the Premier changed the rules and it has not served democracy well. In the last 11 weeks, he has had 4 days here in the legislature, 4 days to try and pass a significant amount of bills because, Mr. Speaker, the bills have to get past second reading before they go to committee. Now, we've made some suggestions to the government to improve their legislation. One of them is to take Bill 21 off the docket and let it die because it's an attack on the judiciary here in the province of New Brunswick. If he does that, maybe we can proceed more. Or maybe you've taken the direction from Dominic LeBlanc and said, stick to your guns, don't take that bill off the legislature.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, not really sure there was a question, but I'll address the comments. Mr. Speaker, I don't think those bills are a waste of time. I think the fact that 8 of the bills are identical and could have been one bill is a waste of time. I think the 49 motions that were copy-pasted and that only changed the name of the ridings to consult was clearly a waste of time. If the Leader of the Opposition is going to stand up and try to pretend that that wasn't a gimmick, then he is insulting the intelligence of everyone that is listening to him here today. And the standing votes on bills that we actually voted yes to on first reading, standing votes required by the opposition on something that has already been able to pass is a waste of time. So then the question becomes, why is he doing it? Well, if he's not going to answer, I will. We know why he's doing it, Mr. Speaker, because he does not want us to pass a bill that is going to give free tuition to those that need it the most in our province come September. Well, I guarantee the people in New Brunswick and the opposition that bill will pass. We will give those people that support.
Order. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Premier would cooperate with us, then we could get to the tuition access bursary. And maybe we could point out some of the flaws that occurred with the fact that he's taking away from 44,000 people here in the province of New Brunswick. The Premier is making it harder and harder for people making over $60,000 with 1 child, 2 children, 3 children. He's making it harder for them to go to post-secondary education. He's making it a discriminatory act in the fact that the students that he wants to help can't choose which institution to go to. Mr. Speaker, that's undemocratic in the best of times. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to get to the tuition access bursary. We want to make improvements. But the fact of the matter is, we've asked the opposition or the government to cooperate with us, and one of the things we've asked them to do is take Bill 21 off the docket, let it die because it interferes with the judiciary here in the province of New Brunswick, and it's wrong. Will the Premier take Bill 21 off the docket?
The Honourable Premier.
The Leader of the Opposition professes that he wants to cooperate. He professes if we cooperate, we'll get to the free tuition bill. That's what he just said. I want the media, everybody listening, to recognize that the Leader of the Opposition said if we cooperate, we are going to get to the free tuition bill. We're going to be able to get to it and debate it. Well, that's, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately not the case. In a private conversation, the House Leader of the Opposition told our House Leader, Mr. Speaker, that if we wanted to be out of here by Friday, we had to pull the free tuition bill, Mr. Speaker. So what the member opposite just said needs clarification, because he just said, Mr. Speaker, that if we cooperated, we could get to the free tuition bill. Clearly that's not the case. If we cooperate, all those students that need support, all those students that are from low-income families, all those students that want to pursue their education in September would not be able to due to the opposition.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, I'm going to give the member who's the new House Leader the benefit of the doubt that he didn't misinform you, that he didn't misinform you on purpose. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that what we said is we need to look at that tuition access bursary and make sure it's all inclusive, because you've cut $50 million from post-secondary education student assistance, and you've only given back $25 million. That's a fact. That's a fact. Check your numbers. So, Mr. Speaker, you've excluded private colleges. You've excluded Crandall's, where your finance minister used to teach, and she's turned her back on them. Mr. Speaker, there's ways you could improve this bill immensely. And we're saying, why don't you set up a select committee on tuition access, and we'll make it better. I know you want to do a select commission on political reform or or political election reforms, but the fact of the matter is people need jobs, people need access to education, and we know how we can make that better. So why don't you cooperate, take Bill 21 off the docket, we'll move to a bill that's to tuition.
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the House Leader of the Opposition told our House Leader that if we delay and take away the free tuition bill, we could be out of here by Friday. Well, that's not how we operate. And just the fact that we were not willing to scrap a bill that will give free tuition to those that are from low-income and middle-class families, Mr. Speaker, they react by doing what they did yesterday, by filibustering their own bills, by asking for standing votes on first reading, by presenting bills that were identical that could have clearly been in the same bill, by copy-pasting motions, clearly trying to waste time. Well, I can guarantee the opposition, and I can guarantee the people of New Brunswick that we're going to do everything we can to make sure the bill that will give free tuition to those that need it most will pass, will be in effect by September of this year.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, again, the House Leader heard incorrectly, heard something different, or made up a story and told you something different, Mr. Premier.
$25 million.
Mr. Speaker, that's the truth, and I know because I have a witness. You have no witnesses. It wasn't recorded or enhanced, so you can't prove it.
Remind the member to address the chair.
Mr. Speaker, the issue is we can improve the tuition access bursary. We're asking the government to cooperate with us. There are some bills that are just incorrect and are hurting the judiciary, and we're saying, why don't you put that one aside? Now, maybe the member opposite got it confused between tuition access bursary, because we know how we can improve the tuition access bursary. We know how we can improve the fact that people making over $60,000 are now going to have higher student debts. They're going to have less access to post-secondary education. So we've asked the member opposite, why don't we set up a select committee on that, and we can work to make that bill a better bill. That's the real issue, and that's why we're asking for cooperation.
The Honourable the Premier.
Encore une fois, Monsieur le Président, il n'y avait pas de question de chef de l'opposition. Clairement, il ne sait pas quoi répondre parce que là, il voit qu'il s'est mis dans un coin. Il voit qu'il a été dire à nous qu'on peut sortir ici ce vendredi si nous sommes prêts à enlever un projet de loi qui va donner des frais de scolarité gratuits à ceux et celles qui ont plus besoin de Nouveau-Brunswick. Monsieur le Président, nous, on ne jouera pas ces jeux-là. Nous, on ne fera pas d'entente avec l'opposition pour sortir vendredi avec l'intention de ne pas donner le projet de loi qui va donner les frais de scolarité gratuitement aux ceux et celles qui en ont besoin, le temps et le débat nécessaire pour que ça passe tout de suite, pour que ça soit en effet pour septembre. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Leader of the Opposition, again, why he is trying to filibuster his own bills, why he is trying to present motions that are copy-pasted, why he is trying to waste time, and why is he stopping a bill that is going to be historic, giving those that need the most support the education they deserve.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this is a historic bill, and we want to get to it. Households making more than $60,000 have been excluded. And that's why we want to look at the fact that they took $25 million more out of the post-secondary education compensation for students. And we want them to look at putting that back so they can help students and households that are making more than $60,000. We want them, the funding to follow the student. Follow the students that qualify so they can make a choice of which institution they go to. Because maybe they want to have something that's a shorter period of time that can get them job ready sooner than a 4-year college program. That's why we want to get to that. But we don't want to hurt the judiciary on the way. And that's why we say, why doesn't the government work with opposition? Let's put aside Bill 21, and that's maybe where the House Leader got confused. I didn't know I'd missed the member from Caracat so quickly. And Mr. Speaker, that's where we want to make the cooperation between government and opposition. Put aside 21, let's work on the tab, but let's make it better for all New Brunswickers.
Honourable the Premier.
Well, first off, every time he gets up, he's making it clearer and clearer that the House Leader delivered the right message. They told our House Leader that we would leave Friday if we pulled Bill 21, if we pulled the free tuition bill, and if we made some amendments concerning the tendering. Mr. Speaker, we will not play that game. We will not pull the free tuition bill under any circumstances, and I hope the opposition has heard that loud and clear, very publicly, might I add. And the Leader of the Opposition is clearly mixing up his words and doesn't know where to go. He's saying we want to get to it. You want to get to the free tuition tax, the free tuition bill, Mr. Speaker? Well, then I suggest that they stop filibustering. I suggest they stop copy-pasting motions. I suggest that they stop asking for standing votes on the first reading. Again, on bills that we actually voted for to proceed. So, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition owes the people of New Brunswick an explanation. If he wants to get to the free tuition bill, then stop filibustering and wasting time.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
I think, Mr. Speaker, the Premier needs an explanation to the people of the province of New Brunswick while he's only worked 4 days here in the House in the last 11 weeks. We got your attention, obviously. Mr. Speaker, we got your attention because we want to make legislation better here in the province of New Brunswick for the people in New Brunswick. That's what we want to do. We want the members opposite to disregard what Dominic LeBlanc said and take the Judiciary Act off the table. 21. Put it aside, let it die. Let's get to the tuition and let's put back the $25 million that they took out so that everybody gets the benefit. So that he doesn't exclude those households with income of over $60,000. So he doesn't include the private institutions of being a choice of the students that qualify for the bill. Will the government work with the opposition on this matter?
The Honourable Premier.
Working with the opposition is pulling the free tuition bill? Absolutely not. Mr. Speaker, they want to know what I've been up to? They want to know what I've been up to over the last few weeks? Well, I've done a lot, but I'll focus on one thing that I did, Mr. Speaker. I went to 2 high school graduations, but probably more important in the case of this debate, I went to the NBCC and CCNB graduations, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition was at one of them, so that's nice. I went to a bunch of them, Mr. Speaker. I went to all except one for both NBCC and one for CCNB. Mr. Speaker, you know what I saw there? I saw in the faces of our youth, I saw in the faces of those who have gone back to school to try to further their skills and develop their education, I saw hope in their eyes. I saw hope in their faces, Mr. Speaker. And I had dozens of them come up to us, talk about how important the free tuition bill will be, not for them because they just went through the system, but for people like them. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that our resolve is even stronger now to make sure that the free tuition bill passes.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, it's interesting because a lot of those graduations take place in the evening, late afternoon, evening. A lot of the fun runs the Premier went on were on Saturdays. Mr. Speaker, he could have been here in the House getting through Bill number 2. But you know what the Premier didn't do? He didn't go to the Oltons graduation. He didn't go to the Crandall graduation. He didn't go to the Eastern College graduation. Why? Because he has excluded those schools as a choice for the students who qualify for the college. And Mr. Speaker, I guess his reception down at St. Andrews wasn't as positive as he had hoped, because he was booed at that time, and using that graduation as a promotion is unforgivable. But the fact of the matter is, we can get to the Tuition Access Bursary Act, and we can make it better. We can have the discussion here on the floor of the legislature. Let's cooperate, Premier, put Bill 21 aside, and let's get to the Tuition Access Bursary.
The Honourable Premier.
C'est un point très mineur, M. le Président, mais je vais faire le point quand même parce que ça démontre qu'est-ce que le chef de l'opposition est prêt à dire pour essayer de gagner un débat et gagner des points politiques. La graduation du CCNB pour Hamilton était à 1h de l'après-midi, M. le Président, un jeudi. À Shippagan, c'était à 6h. Vous pouvez imaginer de Fredericton à Shippagan, ça voudrait dire que je ne pourrais pas être dans l'Assemblée législative. La graduation de Woodstock, M. le Président, c'était à 2h de l'après-midi, un lundi. M. le Président, j'ai aussi eu un sommet avec nos éducateurs pour parler du plan de 10 ans. La graduation de Fredericton du NBCC était à 10h du matin, un mercredi, M. le Président. Celui-là de Moncton était à 3h de l'après-midi, le NBCC. Celui-là de Saint-Jean était à 3h de l'après-midi, jeudi, M. le Président. Et je peux continuer. Et celui-là de St. Andrews, c'était le matin, jeudi à 10h. Je peux continuer. Très petit point. Mais ça démontre à quel point que le chef de l'opposition dira n'importe quoi pour essayer de gagner des points politiques.
Member for Chris Dempsis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to talk back about the lacking reports that we're receiving from this government. And certainly, Yesterday, we discussed the missing third quarter report, and we got a number that was based on the budget from earlier this year. And I guess it's very important that we have timely reports, and very important that we have a fiscal update that has the details. I mean, a fiscal update gives the economic outlet, it talks about the employment opportunities, it talks about the growth opportunities, and more importantly, it puts everyone on the same page. And so, Mr. Speaker, we're missing that information. Now, the Minister of Finance yesterday said, of course we want to be transparent up front and good fiscal managers. That's encouraging, coming from the new Finance Minister. She also goes on to say we have responsibly done a third quarter report. So, given the fact that we've responsibly done a third quarter report, and that would entail having a third quarter report, I would like to request a copy of that third quarter report that we've responsibly finished. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to reiterate that indeed we are committed to being open, transparent, and accountable. And we're a government that takes this very seriously. And I want to reiterate, as I said yesterday, that the February budget did include our third quarter update of 2015-2016. And just to repeat again, the projected deficit for 2015-16 is $466.4 million. And this, for clarity, includes the contingency reserve of $100 million. And this was announced in the budget speech, and you can find this online. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Chris Francis.
Mr. Speaker, the comments about being accountable and transparent are so much more than words. Yes, the 466 number, we heard that yesterday, and yes, that number was part of the budget. We're looking for the report, the detailed report that says where the province is going and what the opportunities are for us to do better. There seems to be a real talk about all the things we're going to do and all the accountability we're going to have, but there doesn't seem to be any action involved in what that actually means. Fact-based decisions have been thrown out the window, and we certainly see that in the discussion around free education. Free education without any other items than a headline because of students that showed up here 2 weeks earlier. Mr. Speaker, the issue with the Minister of Finance, I feel bad for her in many ways because she's inherited a portfolio that's had all the spending removed from it. So I'd like to know if she's had any discussions with the former Minister of Finance, who, by the way, has a trends that were steadily getting worse from the day that they started, a contingency fund that there was all kind of guys around it. Have you talked with the Minister of Finance and the former Minister of Energy about their spending plans?
The Honourable the Premier.
Monsieur le Président, je ne vais pas laisser le député de l'opposition parler de notre projet de loi qui va donner des frais de scolarité gratuitement à ceux et celles qui en ont plus besoin sans me lever. Monsieur le Président, les commentaires de l'opposition, je pense, est malheureux. Ceci, c'est un projet qui va aider au-delà de 7000 personnes. Monsieur le Président, ça va aider à donner des frais de scolarité à ceux et celles qui en ont plus besoin, donner l'appui financier qu'ils ont plus besoin. Monsieur le Président, c'est un projet de loi qui va être historique. Non seulement que ça va aider des personnes qui ont vraiment besoin de l'aide financière, ça va faire en sorte que des personnes qui n'allaient jamais aller à l'université ou au collège le feront. Et, Monsieur le Président, nous avons tous et toutes eu des histoires, je suis convaincu que Global l'ont eu aussi, de personnes qui sont venues nous voir pour dire que ce projet de loi qui va donner les frais de scolarité qu'ils ont plus besoin va changer leur vie. Monsieur le Président, je ne vais pas, comme Premier ministre, laisser l'opposition nous arrêter de passer ce projet de loi et je peux garantir les gens du Nouveau-Brunswick que ça passera et ça sera en effet pour ce septembre.
Member for Chris Francis.
So, Mr. Speaker, I won't mention any other thing because I don't want to have the chance that the Premier is going to feel necessary to stand up and speak for the Minister of Finance. So what I'll talk about is the former Minister of Energy and the former Minister of Finance that now have the spending controls to spend in preparation for the next election. And I would like to know, is there return on investment based on economics? Is it based on life improvements for the citizens of New Brunswick? Or is it based on how many votes can you get where you place the money? And I would suggest that given those placements, that's what it's based on. How many votes can we get throughout the province by spending money where we can get the most votes? So, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Finance, have you had any discussions with the former Minister of Finance, the former Minister of Energy, based on their financing plans for the next 2 years in relation to getting ready for the next election? Because they will blow every bit of the budget that you hope to protect. And given the fact that you're not going to report on anything, we surely won't know anything about it until after the election. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, in response to the comments from the opposition, I want to say again that we are very committed to making reports on a regular basis, and in fact we're following the same timeline that was established by the previous government. And as well, I'd like to say that the minister responsible for the Treasury Board and myself as Finance Minister will continue to work very collaboratively. This is a model that is elsewhere, and we will be in discussion always. It is very important to us that we remain committed to our fiscal framework, that we have a great plan to balance a budget. And we, of course, value accountability, transparency, and we will remain committed to the reporting timelines. And the third quarter update is there on the website.
Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's great to be back in the House. We have so much pent-up potential to solve real problems for New Brunswickers, Mr. Speaker, to put real solutions in place. And one of those real problems, Mr. Speaker, is the length of waiting times in our emergency departments and our hospitals, particularly in our three largest cities, Mr. Speaker. Certainly at the Chalmers Hospital in Fredericton, I regularly hear about the length of waiting times, 12, 13, 14 hours for people, way too long, cruelly long for children and people in pain. I want to know if the Minister of Health can explain to this House why it appears that nothing is being done to improve wait times in our hospital, our emergency rooms.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for the question, and I assure the member opposite that the Department of Health is doing everything it can to try to bring improvements and efficiencies to the system, Mr. Speaker. The challenge we're having is that every single initiative that we put out there to try to improve our healthcare system, the opposition opposes. They oppose everything we're trying to do. Whenever we try to move the yardstick forward and make certain adjustments to our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker, the opposition opposes it. Whether it's, it's in their DNA, it seems, to oppose every single initiative brought forward by this government. We have been working on a plan with our extramural program, with Ambulance New Brunswick, with Telecare 811 to improve our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. We have been working with the Medical Society to put in place Family Medicine New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker, which will improve access to primary care. And by improving access to primary care, we will reduce the backlogs in the hospitals, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the third party.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, well, that's sort of the answer that Mr. McGarry, the CEO for Horizon Health, gave to the Crown Corporations Committee last year, that if they improved, shortened the wait times in emergency rooms, which he acknowledged they could because there are good models out there utilizing nurse practitioners to deal with the sort of routine ear infections in kids and urinary tract infections and so on, but that if they did, they would draw more people into the emergency rooms, and they don't want that. So my question to the Minister of Health is, does he concur with that position, that the reason wait times are so long in the legislative in the hospitals of this province is that they don't want to draw more people into the emergency rooms of our hospitals?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Monsieur le Président, je vais tenter de donner la réponse de nouveau. Peut-être que le député d'en face ne l'a pas compris la première fois. La raison que les lignées sont longues dans nos salles d'urgence, Monsieur le Président, c'est parce que nous n'avons pas assez de capacité au niveau des soins primaires. Nous cherchons à augmenter notre capacité au niveau des soins primaires en travaillant avec le programme d'extramural, en travaillant avec Ambulance Nouveau-Brunswick, en travaillant avec Télésoins 811, en travaillant avec nos médecins, Monsieur le Président, en travaillant à mettre en place un programme de sages-femmes, en travaillant à mettre en place un programme de paramédicaux à soins avancés, en travaillant avec nos autres professionnels de la santé, tels que les infirmières, Monsieur le Président, et les infirmières praticiennes, pour faire en sorte que nous en avons plus de notre système et que nous maximisons chacun de nos professionnels de la santé pour pouvoir offrir les soins primaires de base en communauté pour éviter les longues lignes d'attente dans nos hôpitaux, Monsieur le Président.
Leader of the third party.
In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, the frustration and suffering in our ER departments goes on. I have a constituent who had to wait 12 hours in extreme pain with a broken jaw to be seen. That same woman then went back at another time and had to wait all night to have a severe nosebleed cauterized, Mr. Speaker. So when she then next experienced a problem, abdominal pain, she decided not to go to the emergency ward and wait to see her doctor for 4 days, Mr. Speaker. And what happened? Her appendix burst, Mr. Speaker. She could have died. So we need to fix the problem in our emergency departments now. I agree we need to address primary health care, absolutely, but now there needs to be a fix in our emergency departments. So will the Minister take action and instruct the regional health authorities to reduce emergency wait times now?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, we have great men and women across this province working in our healthcare system, and they are doing the best they can, Mr. Speaker. But every time we bring an initiative forward, the opposition opposes it. So if they want action to happen faster than it's been happening, then they should stop opposing every single initiative we bring forward, and they should help us move those initiatives forward, Mr. Speaker. And by moving these initiatives forward, we are going to build up that capacity for primary care. And we're going to make sure that our healthcare system works together as opposed to working in silos. And we're going to be able to make sure that every healthcare professional in our system works their full scope of practice and does what they're trained to do, Mr. Speaker. But every time we bring forward initiatives, all we get from the opposition is opposing points of view. They never want to see the system change. They don't want to evolve. If they allow that change and that evolution to happen, we will improve primary care and we will reduce wait times.
Time for question period has expired.